I'm basically a person from the field of mass communication. And in fact, the first time went to conduct my session with the Delhi Judicial Academy, I was telling the director who are generally the sessions judge that I have no law degree. He said, I'm not looking for any law degree from you. We are lawyers or we are judges. Know that. But we are looking at the communication angle in the courtrooms, and we are looking at the communication angle between the bar and the bench. So that is my area of expertise, communication. So to start with, let me share with you a beautiful quote of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the context of this coronavirus that has plagued all of us and that has forced all of us to be in the lockdown. In fact, the whole world is in lockdown. It's an amazing situation worldwide, because each and every country across the world are in a lockdown mode. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, just a few days back, he says that he has urged each one of us that we must think of long-term challenges and possibilities for the entire globe. We have to think as a global citizen. And he says, it's a beautiful quote when he says that the photographs of our world from space clearly shows that there are no real boundaries on our blue planet. Therefore, it is imperative for all of us that we should really come together to think and work to prevent the issues of climate change, the destructive forces, the whole issue that has engulfed the whole world. It's not just we as a single individual, but the entire globe together. In fact, he goes on to say that the pandemic serves as a warning that only by coming together with a coordinated global response will we meet the unprecedented magnitude of the challenge we face. This crisis has shown us that we are not separate from one another even when we are living apart. We all have a responsibility to exercise compassion and help. Why I tried to share this quote of His Holiness in the context of the coronavirus is that most of us, like for instance, the social media, when say if we are in Facebook or Instagram and all, there is no soul to soul communication, and our communication evolves only to likes or shares, and that's it. There are so many Facebook friends we don't even know who they are, what they do, and what they think of. So and we are so like, I can't imagine, like, someone who passes away, you will find hundreds of people liking it. I can't imagine someone liking someone's death. But you see, in fact, as a student of communication, as I've been analyzing it for the last several months, especially in the context of coronavirus, there is an amazing sense of solidarity amongst people. And let me share with you this beautiful quote by this friend from Facebook friend from Madagascar. Her name a little tough to pronounce. In fact, her name is Fani Rianso. Yeah, Fani Rianso. The other day, she sent me a beautiful message. Let's pray all together for this whole world, and let us hope that we are able to work together to fight the challenge of coronavirus. Please remain safe, and take care of your family. You see, for this lady who is working in the development sector, probably I hardly know her. Like, she's just a Facebook friend, but you see the empathy, the solidarity which is there, and you will find all across the social media this whole element of solidarity which is evolving. In fact, in fact, increasingly as we find ourselves that we are in a situation, we are in an individualistic society where we believe in crass materialism. We are self-obsessed. We are obsessed to the highest level to ensure that our greed, all that we want, it is taken care of. We are really not bothered, or many of us are bothered about ourselves and our family, possibly not for the other person. So what I really feel is that probably the coronavirus is like a mirror in front of us, which shows that hey, you have not thought of the others, you have not thought of the pain, you have not thought of the real problems that the other people are facing. But all of a sudden, when we do self reflection, when we are in the lockdown mode, we feel that what what is it? Why we are running after greed? Why we are running after luxury? We are just in a lockdown mode. There are minimum things that we have to take care. Just have food. We can't go to a restaurant. We can't go to a cinema hall. So many of the luxuries probably they're not needed. We are not. We have started thinking about, say, a person, say, way people in various other countries within our own country, the whole plight of the migrant laborers. Probably we never had time to think of many of these people beforehand. So solidarity is the important thing. In fact, while I was reading, this was a very beautiful quote on the importance of solidarity I could lay hand on by Jacques Delors on when he's in the first UN conference on environment in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. And he says the world is our village. If one house catches fire, the roofs over all our heads are immediately at risk. If any one of us tries to rebuilding, his efforts will be purely symbolic. Solidarity has to be the order of the day, and each one of us must bear his own share of the general responsibility. We are like a village. We must, as also as His Holiness the Dalai Lama talks about compassion. And again, recently we had this beautiful perspective coming from this famous primatologist Jane Goodall, who says that we humans have to be blamed for this pandemic because what we are doing is we are reaching out, we are cutting our forest, we are destroying our forest, and because of that, the animals, the wild animals, they're coming in very close proximity to us. And also, we are the other problem is that we are into eating wild animals. So all these creates a lot of problems and the imbalance in the nature. And why it is so important is solidarity is linked to the whole idea. Possibly you will all know about it, the cosmocentric approach to human nature. Probably we have forgotten it. Yesterday only I was trying to write a blog which I in fact shared with Dr. Siddiqui, and I was trying to talk on the cosmocentric approach to human nature. What is that? Interdependence, the understanding of human interdependence with nature and all other living beings. That has been the ancient Indian tradition, the Eastern philosophy, and not the Western philosophy, which talks only about consumerism and materialism. If you see, as I'm from Gandhi Smriti, if you have ever read the Hind Swaraj of Mahatma Gandhi, way back in 1907 when he was writing, talking in the Hind Swaraj, that there is a crisis in human civilization. The more, the breakneck speed and the way we are trying to catch up with the time actually is satanic. He tells the modern civilization as satanic because we are going at a breakneck speed to destroy the environment for our own self-aggrandizement. In fact, yesterday in my blog, I tried to say that even though the coronavirus has talked about is like a mirror in front of us, and we realize what we are trying to do for the environment, I don't know, 6 months henceforth, when probably things become normal, the great quote of Mahatma Gandhi that there is enough for everyone's need and not enough for everyone's greed will again get back to our academic discussions without being an actionable thing. In this context, when we are talking of solidarity, the cosmocentric approach to human nature, the interconnectedness, what is important is non-violent communication. Friends, we all communicate. We cannot not communicate. Each one of us need to communicate. It is as important as the air that we breathe in or the food that we take. But what is important is healthy communication. Believe me, probably some of you, many of us are in conflict, get into conflict with our friends or family members or something. Just imagine a situation where we have had a fight with a friend, and we use some words or things which are not very palatable. And probably when we reflect back, we will feel sad about it. Why did we use that language? As Gautam Buddha says, that words has the power to both heal our relationship and also destroy our relationship. It's the words, it's a language which is at the heart of conflict. And here, when we are talking of non-violent communication, it means that non-violence in both verbal and non-verbal, in our verbal and non-verbal communication. And it extends not just to communication between human and human. It also extends with what we are communicating with the nature and all other living beings. Again, the whole idea of the cosmocentric approach to human nature, the human interdependence, that is important. We need to ensure non-violent communication with not just all other living beings, human beings, but also the nature and other living beings. Now, I will try to look at what exactly is non-violent communication, how it is important for us, and then go to the last section, that is on non-violent communication in the judicial system, because you are all are aspiring lawyers. Well, as I said, non-violent communication is non-violence in both verbal and non-verbal communication. Because sometimes you see, we may be good with a particular person, but our body language is very, very aggressive. So that is again violent form of communication. In fact, I will share with you, I shared with Madam Siddiqui the the course material that we have started with as part of Gandhi Smriti. And there at the end, you will find this beautiful dialogue I had with a famous, well-known Gandhian, Sri Natwar Thakkarji. He passed away in 2018. And gives a very erudite understanding of what non-violent communication is. He goes on to say that it is not just verbal and non-verbal communication, but we need to be non-violent in also our thoughts and our ideas and perspectives. Just imagine that we are talking to a particular person, and we are very good with him or her, but at the back of our mind we have very, very negative thoughts about that person. We are violent. So Natwar Thakkar sir says that that's again is violent form of communication, non-violent communication, and tells not just verbal and non-verbal communication, but also our thought process, the ideas and perspectives needs to be non-violent in nature. Then, what are the important elements of non-violent communication? Before that, it's so important to understand what are the benefits. You see, every day we are basically dealing and talking and interacting with people, whether with our friends, with our family members, with our professionally. But when we are very aggressive, we may not get the best of the results that we really want. And here I want to tell you about the pillars. You see, for every building that we make, you need to have pillars, and the pillars need to be strong. And so, what are the pillars of non-violent communication? These are the 5 pillars of non-violence of Mahatma Gandhi. And let me tell you very briefly about these 5 pillars of non-violence. First is respect. You see, when you start respecting each other, let us make it as a habit to respect each other. And it really it is so easy to respect each other. Let us try to make it into a habit to respect to each other. And then when we start respecting each other, much of the conflicts that are there in this world, they get diluted slowly. Then after respect comes, when we respect each other, then we can enhance or increase our understanding of each other. So respect leads to understanding. These are all very, very process based, very systematic. So when we respect each other, it will help us to understand each other. And when we understand each other, it will be much easier and simpler to accept each other's positions. Then comes the fourth pillar of Gandhian nonviolence. It is appreciation. You see, every day, because we are in this world where so much of things are happening, we tend most of the time be negative. Not many of us are very positive. When we get up in the morning, we will say that this has not happened, that is not there, I'm not getting this, and like this. So positive appreciation is so important. We must try to appreciate the good things that are there. If you are angry within, why don't we look outside, the beautiful trees and the flowers, and you see your anger comes down, you're mellowed. So positive appreciation, we need to learn how to be positive appreciation. In fact, I'm doing a research on mediation and communication. We are trying to bring together a whole course on communication and mediation. And there it is so important when we are doing mediation, the appreciation is an important thing if you're as a good mediator, in terms of communication. So a positive appreciation. And then comes the fifth pillar of Gandhian nonviolence, and that is compassion. And compassion we need to be compassionate to not just all human beings, but also the nature and other living beings. Compassion. We need to practice compassion. Compassion is such an important thing. So these are the 5 pillars of nonviolence, which are really the pillars of nonviolent communication. And if you see the Gandhian nonviolent communication, uh, these are the 4 elements: nonviolent speech and action, and followed by nonviolent speech of action, flexibility in communication, openness in communication, and the enhancement of personhood. When you are nonviolent in your communication, you enhance your personhood, you enhance the humanhood. Now we come very quickly. Madam Siddiqui, much time is left? So
So
that
please go ahead. So we are all
okay,
interested in hearing you.
okay,
Please go
okay,
ahead.
okay,
Yes.
sure. Okay, so now we come to briefly talk about the elements of nonviolent communication. The first and foremost element of nonviolent communication is use of nonviolent speech and action. You see, let us try. It is not just we are going to become a judicial officer or lawyers or anyone, but here let us talk about ourselves as a human being first, and here and dealing with humans and dealing with our family members, dealing with our friends, dealing with so many people across. So why don't we practice to use non-violent language, the language that is important? We need to enhance our emotional vocabulary. We need to enhance our vocabulary of non-violent languages and words that were used. In fact, here I want to give you an example. Some time back, we were having this workshop with the judges, honorable judges, and the lawyers of Saket District Court here in Delhi. And after 1 month, I went back to have this follow-up program. And the president of that bar association, he said that now every time I go to the court for argument, I'm always conscious that what I want to speak. Earlier, I used to be very, very aggressive, but I realized after your session that I can tell the same thing. I can get things in a better way if I am using non-violent speech and action. So that is something we need to understand, the ingenuity of using non-violent words, non-violent language. And that is the first and important element of non-violent communication. The second most important element of non-violent communication is understanding the self. I'm sure many of us in this world of smartphones and being used to using Facebooking and Instagram and social media in a big way, how many of us have last met ourselves? I'm not sure how many of you have met yourself last. In fact, when I went to the Ranchi Law University, I found very few people students who could come up and say there were almost 100 students in that particular session. Hardly anyone had could meet themselves. In fact, that is so important. Self-awareness, understanding the self, and there, in fact. Hopefully after lockdown, if we are able to have a proper workshop in your university, we have this whole interesting exercise with what we call the Johari window, where we
Yes.
try to unearth your hidden potential and so many problems. In fact, so much so, I was telling Madam Siddiqui that when I was having this session with these students of the Ranchi Law University, many of these students came, and almost till 8 o'clock in the evening, I was trying to, they would come personally with some of their problems and relationship problems, so many other things. And we are living in a very strange world where we are always in the mix of so many things and so many confusions, so many conflicts. And so it's so important that we understand ourselves, we meet ourselves, we self-awareness, self-control, self-management are the key. And that is the second most important element of non-violent communication. Now we come to the third important element of non-violent communication, and that is stereotyping. You see, most of us, like say for instance, we are in a road and we find there is someone who has picked someone's pocket, and there is some homeless people around. The first thing we will, without even thinking, will say that yes, this is the person who must have picked the pocket. So stereotyping, like you see, someone with persons with disability, there, which we will use words that are very not good enough, like we will say andha hai and all those kind of words. So we are all used to, because of this cultural context in which we are there, and the whole idea of the link with culture and stereotyping, we are so used to seeing things as normal, you know, that is there. So we should avoid being stereotyping in our communication. That is so important. In fact, when we do this interesting exercise with judicial officers on judicial empathy and stereotyping, we come up with interesting case studies on why judicial officer needs to expand their vision and expand their ideas. Otherwise, they will also fall into the trap of stereotyping. Because there was one example we were doing with some of the honorable judges, that if you are coming from a particular background, and if the person in front of you is also from a particular background, you might have there might be a possibility that the judgment that you are trying to give could actually help that particular person from that background, whereas it could be a different thing if that person is not from that particular background. So widening of your canvas is so important. Well, so avoidance of stereotypes is the third most important element of non-violent communication. Then comes the fourth important element of non-violent communication, and that is avoidance of the use of evaluative statements. You see, evaluation. We are again into the whole problem of evaluation. Like, say for instance, I will give you an example. Say for instance, Madam Siddiqui is the coach of the school football team, and one of you is a football player in the school football team, and you're not scoring for the last 10 matches, and so she will fire you. She will say that hey, you are totally useless fellow. You don't deserve to be in the team. But just imagine if she says, well, friend, I'm sure you're doing a good work. You're doing really hard work. And I'm sure in the next game, you will be able to score a goal. You will be pumped up. You will be motivated. You see the whole difference. So evaluative language, avoidance of the use of evaluative language is so important. Again, I will give you an interesting example. Say for instance, you are in the home and now it is lockdown period, and your sister you are cleaning the house, and your sister is sitting in the sofa and lying down, and she's not helping you, and you will say, hey, you lazy bum, you're not doing anything. So she will again try to hit you back. But if you say that, hello, sister, I'm sure you were studying the whole night yesterday and you need rest. I'm sure the next time I clean the house, you will also come with me and clean the house. You see the difference? And I'm sure in most of the cases, your sister will come and help. Okay, come on, come on. So it's how you use the words and the languages that is so important, critical. So avoidance of use of evaluative language is very, very important. Now we come to the next important aspect of non-violent communication is mutual respect. Unless and until we respect each other, civility, respect, and linking it with whole idea of civility. If you're not respecting the other person, then you may not expect the other person to respect you. And then there will be a breakdown in communication. So the first and foremost, important thing in avoidance of conflict is respecting the other person. Fine, you may be having a difference of opinion. I may have a difference of opinion with Madam Siddiqui over an issue. But if I don't respect her or she doesn't respect me, our negotiation over a particular issue will not go forward, and there will be a breakdown of agreement, and there could be an acrimonious situation, and we actually could end up going to the court. So mutual respect is extremely important. Then comes the next important element of non-violent communication is avoid being aggressive when you are communicating. You may be in a conflict situation, but how you handle it. Because if you're aggressive, you may end up in a win-lose situation. At the end of the day, when we are talking of resolution of a conflict, which is a win-win situation, you need to ensure that both the parties, or all the parties together, need to come to a particular platform and try to come up with an important solution. So, but if one party is very aggressive, the other party will also be, in turn, could be aggressive, or there could be complete breakdown of communication. So let us try to avoid aggressiveness when we are talking to people, or we are handling a particular situation. So that is again an important element of non-violent communication. Then we come to the next element of non-violent communication, and that is empathy. In fact, empathy is a very, very important issue. Many times conflicts happen, or we are not able to handle a particular situation because we don't empathize. We don't know the whole, art and science of being empathetic. And what is important, you will find so many, interesting models across the world. Like, say, for instance, the apartheid in South Africa. Uh, there, there was a whole Truth and Reconciliation Commission that was formed, and one of the major focus was empathic repair. Empathic repair. So empathy is an extremely important element of non-violent communication, and a lot of research has shown that there is a direct linkage between empathy and the neuroscience of the brain. Like, the more empathetic you are, the less stressful you will be, and more happier you will be, and you will be able to understand each other's position. And here I'm talking about the need to practice deep empathy. Empathy is trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes and trying to understand from that position. But I'm talking of deep empathy, trying to critically look, go deep into the situation of the other person, and trying to find out why that particular person is behaving in such a manner. And then we will be able to handle and negotiate a particular issue or problem at hand in a much more nuanced way if we are practicing deep empathy. Then comes the other important element of non-violent communication, and that is gratitude. You see, it's so important. Let us be thankful to people. Like, I'm really thankful to Madam Siddiqui that she has been able to have this, and I'm really enjoying talking to you. So we need to be thankful to each and every person, every situation. We should be also be thankful to a particular situation we have had. Probably we should be thankful. We might have faced ourselves in a very difficult situation, but after some time, when we realize that we have learned a lot from that particular situation, we need to thank that situation, whether a situation or an individual or any people. We should learn the thing of gratitude, and that's why we say that we must, maintain a gratitude journal. While you're going to bed for the night, why don't we write down during the course of the day who were the people because of whom we really learned a lot, because of whom we really got benefited. So let us be thankful. Gratitude, and again, gratitude is linked to the neurosciences, and proper research says that it helps in proper scientific research says that the more you express gratitude, you will be less stressful, you will be more happy. So these are important. The last most important element, another important element of non-violent communication is trying to understand the other person's point of view at the needs level. What were the needs of that particular person because of which he or she was acting in that way? Let me give you a very interesting example. When I was having a session on non-violent communication with the newly recruited judicial officer in the Judicial Academy. So one of the very senior most judges of the Delhi High Court, she was there. And she gave an interesting example of this whole element of understanding the situation or the person's needs at the needs level. She was saying ki, when she was judging a particular case of a fight between a brother and a sister, and it was very acrimonious, and it was going on for some years. Then one day she called that, invited that lady to her chamber, and they were trying to see how it could be mediated in some way or the other. And then she realized, when she started talking to that lady, the basic fundamental reason why that whole fight had erupted into such an acrimonious fight was that she felt that the brother, who was younger than her, did not respect her much, and nor did her sister-in-law. So the whole problem started, the root was from the lack of respect of the brother and the sister-in-law for this lady. And because of that, whole thing started. So if we go to the deep level, if we go to the critical level and try to understand the needs of that particular person, why he or she is trying to behave in a particular way, we will be able to fathom the whole issue and possibly be able to handle the situation in a better way. So understanding the person's situation at the needs level is very, very important vis-a-vis non-violent communication. So, friends, these were some of the elements of non-violent communication. And I'm sure the more you read, and we definitely would love to have further interaction, because over the Skype, you may not, I cannot give you too many case studies, because there are so many interesting case studies when we do empathy with the judicial officers. You know, the whole idea of judicial empathy. It's a beautiful studies from Sweden and the US on how judicial empathy helps in promotion of restorative justice. And I was talking to Madam Siddiqui. Probably there is judicial empathy is not there in the syllabus as such in that fashion here. So I try to share a lot of case studies when I take a session on judicial empathy. So those are very, very important elements. But we need to introspect. We need to understand these points, and let us say, friends, that it is not really related to your profession. It is related to your relationship, how good a relationship you can build, relationship with your friends and family members. And at the end of the day, it is also I will say that it is for your own benefit, because the more violent you are in your communication, then the more stressful you will become, and the more anxiety that you will have, and it will really affect you. But if you're non-violent communicator, you will be able to get more things done. I will give you a very interesting example. Sometime back, I was there with a very good friend of mine. In fact, he happens to be the brother of this famous novelist Vikram Seth. His name is Shantam. So he stays near my home. So I was in Shantam's house. And in fact, Shantam happens to be the son of the former first woman Chief Justice of India, no, Justice Leela Seth. Shantam. So Shantam had to send a courier, and he calls his driver. Generally, if we have to call a driver, we'll say, okay, you come. He's over the phone. He said, "Aap busy to nahi hai." So must have told the driver that nahi nahi. So then the driver comes, and he tells the driver कि अगर अभी आप ये courier लेके जाएंगे, आपको कष्ट तो नहीं होगा. Just see the language that he used. अगर अभी ये courier लेके जाएंगे, आपको कष्ट तो नहीं होगा. He's talking to his driver. And see, you probably, when you're using non-violent communication, I can tell you most of the time you make the other person defenseless. So the driver may be thinking ki, abhi nahi jana chahiye and all, but when his boss is saying कि आपको कष्ट तो नहीं होगा, he immediately sprang up and said नहीं 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 अभी तुरंत जा रहा हूँ. So you see how you use language is a big art. We must learn the art and science of using language in a very, very non-violent way, and that is the ingenuity. So as I said, we have this detailed full day session with the judicial officers when we start with the elements of non-violent communication and what is non-violent communication. Then we have this understanding self where we use the Johari window. And after lunch session, we have this whole session on judicial empathy, which is with a lot of case studies, we try to analyze these things. So we have having these workshops as you are from the law faculty with various law universities, and as I told you, the lawyers and the prosecutors and all, and they always have a lot of interesting questions, and we come across a lot of interesting case studies, and which shows the efficacy of using non-violent communication in the courtroom, and that has really helped. But more and more we try to imbibe it in our daily habits. I'm sure we should be able to handle situations and conflicts in a better way. If many of you are would go to become mediators or negotiators, I think non-violent communication is the key, to use as a tool for success, so that we are able to ensure a proper, sustainable, solution to that particular conflict. Now, I think we can have some questions.
Yes, sir. Sir, because the whole session, the whole discussion we had, and the whole presentation that you gave, I think it has opened the third eye, which we call as the Gyanakshu. in Sanskrit, if I'm not wrong. So for me, it was such an experience, and I think it's the same for the kids also and for the other faculty.
In fact, I could not get the name of our other friend.
Gyanakshu. Acha, the other friend, okay, he's a colleague. It's Abhishek Singh Negi. He'll introduce. He'll have his own observations. But before that, I think I'll take reflections from our students. And apart from their reflections, if they have any doubt, any pertinent query, I think they'll like to put up before you, because we've been having such discussions in the class, and these are a bunch of very let's say intellectually stimulating kids who keep on making me think again and again beyond the ambit, and I think they have some questions and reflections to make. So we'll go in a chronological order. We'll start from Aditya, then Aman, and then Rachit. Reflections and a question if you have any. So please go ahead. Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, my name is Aditya. I'm doing my master's in specializing in international law at Dharmashastra National University. Sir, your lecture was really amazing. It gave us a whole new perspective about how important communication is. So, sir, I'll start with my remarks, and then I have a few questions to you. So, as our topic is solidarity and COVID-19, so the word solidarity itself is very important amid this crisis. It is very much reflective from the very fact that the WHO's fund, which they have initiated to help people who are suffering from COVID, is titled as Solidarity Fund. And even the clinic established by WHO to test the medicines, this whole clinical trial test is also termed as solidarity. So it gives us a very new perspective about how important solidarity is amid this difficult times. So as we were talking about Gandhiji's work on Hind Swaraj, in Hind Swaraj he also talks about the value of self-reliance, how important self-reliance is. So self-reliance as a policy measure is very much can be very much spotted in our national policy today, how we are helping other countries by giving medicines. So this is also a reflection about his idea of village. Now we are moving into the idea of a global village, where India is playing a role in acting as a facilitator towards progress, facilitator towards providing healthcare. And the whole crisis has also shown us how our nation is slowly again going back to the socialistic idea, providing help to migrants or giving healthcare or focusing more on a socialistic idea about how exactly a state should function. So I have two questions for you, sir. So you talked more about non-violent communication. For me, I think it's more theoretical scripting about ideas. How do you think this non-violent communication will play a role in terms of COVID, or when we are seeing world communicating with each other, or countries are communicating with other countries? For example, we have seen how Donald Trump is talking to China in a very aggressive way. How do you think that in a post-COVID world, non-violent communication will play a role, or what is the interrelationship between non-violent communication and the present crisis? This is my question number one. Question number two is regarding is this whole idea of non-violent communication actually practicable? Because how will you ensure that this actually comes into play when we deal with day-to-day crisis? Because at the time of crisis, we don't look for what is good, but we look for what's better for our action. So how do you ensure that there will be harmonious balancing between these two conflicting ideas?
Should I speak now? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me, your point focuses on the practicability of non-violent communication. Am I audible? Please?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Okay. You see, whenever we go and have sessions with different stakeholders on non-violent communication, or even on the Gandhian ideas, many people think these are all utopian idea. But when we start talking to them from the basics of understanding, respect, the 5 pillars which we talked about, the respect, understanding, acceptance, appreciation, and compassion, then people think, yes, if we try to imbibe it, we are going to be more practical. We will be able to handle many issues much easier way than getting into a complicated situation. As for your question related to non-violent communication in the post-COVID situation, or non-violent communication in the critical issues in global diplomacy and all, you see, in a global context, of course, the problem is that there are different actors. They have different business interests. Economics really, is the most important pivotal factor which actually maneuvers our relationship with a particular country or a group. Here, non-violent, at the end of the day, let me tell you, the Gandhian non-violent communication is so critical that everyone, like I have so many friends across different countries, not just a very large number of countries in Africa and other countries, and they are all really feel that unless and until we imbibe the whole idea of non-violent communication and promote solidarity, we are going nowhere. There is this, yesterday I was having a long chat with this professor from Spain, because Spain has been in really bad situation, and he wanted that I should have a session with his students on non-violent communication, which will help probably to get out of the anxiety. So people are thinking about it. Well, at the diplomatic level, it is not easy, like, because at the end of the day, you see, there will be various posturing. No, if you are a diplomat, if you're a president, or there will be different posturing to get various, gains out of a particular situation. So there again, at the end of the day, peace is the most important thing that each one of us in the world are running for. And ultimately, even if there is a conflict, people will come to that peace is the most important. And that's why you have probably Mahatma Gandhi is still relevant as one of the most important peace apostles. The other day, this friend from Burundi, he posted in his Facebook a beautiful quote of Mahatma Gandhi that we should not hate those who with whom we have differences. So you see the expanse of people who really want peace. And Gandhi had really said a beautiful quote that there will be peace in the world only when the individuals comprising of it really are going to work for peace. So at the end of the day, non-violent communication and the idea of peace and idea of communication for peace are great in nature, and really will have are absolutely practical if we want to have a conflict-free world. If we can't have peace or communication for peace, then there will be more conflicts. So that is an important thing. We need to have a propensity to really be non-violent in our approaches, I really feel. I'm not sure how probably if we have face-to-face, we could have a more nuanced discussions on these issues with a lot of interesting examples that are there. If you remember the Rwanda genocide, I'm sure many of you have heard of it, the huge genocide of 1994. Sometime back at Gandhi Smriti actually had this program with different embassies and high commissions. And sometime back we had this beautiful lecture by the Rwandan High Commissioner here in India. And he gave a beautiful speech on the genocide and after that. And he was talking about the Gacaca Court and the whole idea of reconciliation. So whenever there is differences, there is a conflict, at the end of the day, ultimately the only thing that we would look for is reconciliation, the whole idea of peace. Without that, we can't go forward. So in that context, non-violent communication becomes very central.
That's beautifully answered, sir. Actually, that's a very important point that you've made here, because things go onion layered. So we need to peel every layer and then understand the importance of each and every step, I believe. So I think we'll move forward from Aditya to Aman, and Aman can put up his reflections and then put up the questions that he has in mind, if Aditya is contented with the answer. Okay, we'll have Aman now. Yes.
So my question has already been answered. I was asked you about the practicality, how much this non-violent communication play a role in international sphere, and I think so I don't have any other question. It has already been answered, but the reflection is that non-violent communication is really a need when we have seen that like all the nuclear powers and everybody where they were focused on maintaining their military defenses and everything, and they have failed and come down before the health services, and there was for like all those there have been a good trolls and memes about that, all those in the time of COVID, all those nuclear powers have to run for getting their ventilators, whether when they were running for nuclear bombs, and they were have to run for ventilators at the time of COVID-19. So at this time, the peace and all the non-violent communication is very important. When we respect and have commonhood and humanity among each other, then only we are able to survive any problem. And all those um, all those concepts of global village takes a very good place at this point of time when we see this, the world is becoming one to fight against the COVID-19. So this is my reflection about the whole lecture, how
Also,
important
sir,
it is.
yes. Also, sir, I think you'll be happy to note that Aman was the student who had actually written a very long note to each of the faculties. So he wrote a very sweet note to, I think, all the faculties, and he marked a mail to each one of us, appreciating our efforts that we were taking online classes. At the same time, how stress could be managed and how things could be taken forward. So he's been into a lot of stress management and studies associated with it. So
Okay,
he did
that's
a very good job. Gratitude as one of the 5 pillars, as you were mentioning. So
Mhm.
yes.
That's
So
right.
we'll take Rachit now. Rachit, yes.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, your lecture was very good. In fact, as I want to practice law further, so this mediation and non-violent communication was really a good base as to help me how to go about this. Sir, I have a very small. Hello.
Yes,
Yes, yes. Please
please.
go
Yes.
ahead, Rachit.
Yeah. Sir, I have a very small question as to, sir, there in these times of anxiety when there is COVID-19 present, how do we communicate with our family? Like we being teenagers, there are several issues. Like I have never seen 8 people at a time
Rachit,
in
you
my
aren't a
family,
teenager.
particularly. Ma'am, it is something like young adults.
Yes, right.
I have
Kiddos.
young adult.
Yes. Okay,
I
fine.
have
Go ahead.
approximately 8 people in my family right now. So how do this? Like I like to be in my private space. Now, how do I communicate with my family in such a way that there are no frictions around?
In fact, this is an interesting question, and this is a question which I was talking to a professor in the Vishwa Bharati University the other day, and he was telling the exactly same thing, the same problem of his students facing, which our friend Rachit is also talking about. And I feel that during this time, it is all the more necessary, and we should be thankful. First of all, we should be thankful that probably thankful to coronavirus that we are being we should not use the word force. We have this great time to be with our family, with our friends, with our kith and kin, and all the time. Of course, there could be friction because we are all human beings, and there is always possibility of conflicts. But here, it's all the more. I think after today, it's all the more important that you try to actually put non-violent communication into practice, all those elements, and try to see how you could resolve those frictions or differences. There could be, as human beings, there should be no, जिसको कहते हैं कि हमारे बीच में मतभेद हो सकता है, मनभेद नहीं होना चाहिए. So the most important is how we can ensure that all the frictions are removed and we be happy using non-violent communication. We should be thankful that I am really thankful that I am at home and I am doing this work on mediation and non-violent communication and all. Also spending so much time with my family. Otherwise, you go early in the morning and come, and there is no time for the family. So here is a golden opportunity to be part with the family and share a lot of good things and enjoy it. You must enjoy it. You must feel. You must appreciate. That's what I said. The 5 pillars of Gandhian non-violence: positive appreciation. Let us appreciate the positive things that we are looking from it, so that the negativities don't creep in and we remain positive. So
Otherwise,
let
look
us
at
take it
your
as a
teacher who is
Huh.
away from her family.
No, I'm saying let us take it as a challenge to actually practice non-violent communication in our family setting from today onwards, and see whether there is, as our friend, the first friend Ankit, no, his name Ankit. Aditya was telling ki whether it was practicable or not. Let us see the efficacy of practical non-violent communication. And in fact, we could end up writing a good academic paper after this, when we all have ended up actually using non-violent communication as an experiment in our own family, and see whether the friction are there or not. And when we respect each and every members of the family, they will also respect you, and you will be having your own sweet, good space. That is so important.
Yes. Dr. Prabhu, I give you to my 3 subjects case studies. I'm just joking. Anyways, we'll have reflections from Abhishek sir if he's online. Abhishek sir. Hello.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So please introduce yourself and your reflections.
Yes. Okay. First of all, let me thank Mr. Kundu for the very good lecture on communication skills. And hearing somebody from my parent university is a very good feeling. And sir, I hope that everything is fine in NUSL Ranchi.
Yeah, I was there, I think 2 months back, and I had a great time with the Honorable Vice Chancellor there, and there is a faculty member, Subir, who is a good friend.
Yes, sir.
So, and also, we know the Vice Chancellor personally, so it's much easier to get things done over there. Anything I feel that we should do, just call up the Vice Chancellor, and he's always very enthusiastic. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so it's really great, sir, to hear that my parent university is working upon the soft skills and communication skills of the students. Okay, so apart from that, sir, my name is Abhishek Singh Negi, and I have done my BA LLB honors from NUSL Ranchi, and I have done LLM from Nalsar, Hyderabad.
Okay.
And for the past 2 years, I am teaching in DNLU, Jabalpur.
Okay.
So, as the topic of this discussion is COVID-19 and with regard to stress management, I hope. So, sir, I'll talk about the what are the policy challenges for the government when it comes to COVID-19, because obviously, apart from the communication skills, there are many challenges which the government will or is facing presently with respect to COVID-19. For example, the most important of all these stresses, agrarian stress, that farmer stress right now which are facing, and I think that that stress cannot be dealt only through communication, and the government intervention is very much required. So my first area of concern here would be to talk about farmer stress, that how farmer stress has been increased in this COVID-19. And recently I have heard that government is planning for helicopter money. I hope you guys have heard the news, helicopter money. So the news is that government is planning for helicopter money, and many of the news channels thought that helicopter money is government is now planning to give money through helicopters, and they will just throw the monies through helicopters. So this is actually not helicopter money. Helicopter money is government is now going to hugely invest to again accelerate the economy, because obviously we could surely see the economic slowdown after the COVID-19. So this is one of the step of after the COVID-19, that helicopter money would be the solution. Number one. Number two, the government must start right now is open market operations. I hope you guys have read about open market operations in your economic classes, and as ma'am is already teaching law and economics, so she must have taught the students about open market operations. So this is the second solution which the RBI will undertake. Moreover, apart from farmers' distress, I have already the WHO has already released the guidelines how to cope up with the stress in this situation. So the WHO has already uh, st- uh, published the guidelines, and through guidelines, the WHO has stated that what general public must do for to de-stress themselves, and for example, how what doctors and health workers must do for stress management, and how the elderly and old age people must do. So, in short, what I have read is they have repeatedly said that do not follow news these days, as most of the news are fake. Or, for example, I have given you the example of helicopter money, where the news agencies thought that they will throw the money through helicopter. So these are in this situation to one, we should not focus on the news as such, and because in India authenticity of the news is very important, and we have seen the aftermath of any fake news. For example, yesterday only two uh, Hindu sons were killed because mob thought that they are going to steal their kids. So this is the example of how people are stressed out in India because of COVID-19, and just because of one fake news, they killed two people. So these are my points to draw, that please do not number one, follow any news channel for the time being, and please rely on government news and data.
Hmm. Thank you so much for the insightful knowledge and points that you put forward, sir. It's really great to hear such words of caution in the time of completely stressful times. I would conclude very safely. Just 2 points I think I'll put before sir, and then we can conclude the session because it's been an hour and I do not want to hold every one of us really long back. So there are these two issues which I've been working upon, and I wish that if we could have further deliberations in the time to come. The issue is regarding research in law. The recent research in law has been showing that the researchers or the research scholars specifically are facing a lot of stress. So once you start a topic and you start researching on that particular topic, specifically as far as law is considered, so we see the amount of stress people studying law in comparison to the people studying any other discipline is comparatively high. So there needs to be a look into the fact that as to why the study of law is making people more anxious or filled up with anxiety or a lot of stress these days. Second, there is a lot of issues as far as the stress management in the research scholars is considered. This is a second issue which is generally being coming up. And the third issue is regarding the fact that you use the fact about emotional vocabulary, which I found very interesting. And I think I'll be developing something on how to use and what would be the possible mechanisms to understand what is an emotional vocabulary. But then sadly, there is something called as intellectual narcissism, which is developing day by day. And I think we all are falling prey to intellectual narcissism. So we just read like a 10% of the book and like we proclaim, yes, we are doctorate. Like, for example, you just give me a doctorate degree in the beginning of the session. So yes, of course, I'm supposed to complete my doctorate. But then the issue is regarding intellectual narcissism, that we tend to create a world of our own where any thought or any issue that provokes us makes us stretch our boundaries to a level where we feel threatened. And also then that creates stress. So these are few reflections and few things which we could discuss in the times to come. And it was a pleasure to have you, Dr. Kundu sir, because on such a short notice, you actually agreed to having a discussion and a presentation with us. At the same time, where people are discussing about trade, law, aviation sector falling down, probably the wildlife being affected and everything. I think this particular topic was very, very important and worth taking, because it has actually eased us to a level where we would probably pause and have a look back as to all of our actions. And the series that I'm having, COVID series, I think this would be one of the most special lectures in the whole series. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, all the students, and Abhishek sir. And
yes. I will request everyone to do that course of Gandhi Smriti, very simple course of which I shared with you,
sir.
the course material. Though
I'll share it with them.
Yeah.
Yes. We have seen it also. Yeah.
Yes, sir, definitely.
And, I would promise that once the lockdown is over, we will come to your university and by hand give you all the certificates of the course.
And you know the faces, sir. You identify the faces. You can just hold on to them at any point of time.
They are going to organize the session, the full day, 1 day or 2 day session that we are going to have in your university.
Definitely, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, all the students, and thank you, Abhishek, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.